The Supreme Court's decision overturning Roe v. Wade has not only ignited violent protest, it's also sparked the left to attack the court's legitimacy. Over the weekend, across the country, some protests spiraled out of control. In Los Angeles, police arrested a man charging him with the attempted murder of a police officer after burning him with a makeshift blowtorch. In Vermont, pro-choice vandals scrawled this threat at the Senate House: "If abortions aren't safe, you aren't either." And in our nation's capital, activists burned the American flag. One sign next to the burning flags read, "F.U. Thomas, Alito, Coney, Barrett, Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, Roberts." And some of the left are specifically targeting Justice Clarence Thomas after he suggested the court should reconsider its ruling on gay marriage and contraception. And now liberals are questioning the validity of the entire Supreme Court and calling for action.
This court has lost legitimacy. They have burned whatever legitimacy they may still have had after their gun decision, after their voting decision, after their union decision.
Sends a blaring signal to all future nominees that they can now lie to duly elected members of the United States Senate in order to secure Supreme Court confirmations and seats on the Supreme Court. I believe lying under oath is an impeachable offense.
The hell with the Supreme Court. We will defy them.
In a country that's supposedly founded on the separation of church and state, we Americans find ourselves being held hostage by a far-right Christian court.
Well, the justices didn't lie. As you know, Emily, they just invoked the Ginsburg rule, which they did not preview their opinion on a case and acknowledge that Roe was precedent. But precedent doesn't mean that it's sacrosanct, especially if it's bad precedent. That aside, Emily, the bigger point here is this is returned to the states. So if the left is so convinced of their political argument, instead of taking a blowtorch to police officers, take it to the ballot box.
That's exactly right. We've talked before that with everyone missing the entire point of the substantive argument of Roe v. Wade, which is basically restoring the power back to the people, right? It's actually increasing everyone's individual power because it's restricting the government's authority and the government's power. And that is what the intent was behind the Constitution. I also really loved this. We have a call for here. I'll put it up. The Wall Street Journal editorial board wrote, "The fury of the left's reaction isn't merely about guns and abortion. It reflects their grief at having lost the court as the vehicle for achieving policy goals they can't get through legislatures. The cultural victories they achieved by judicial fiat will now have to be won by persuading voters. We understand their frustration, but they ought to try democracy for a change." And that is exactly the point. Everyone up in arms. We're going to go through, I know, whole tweets and a lot of, especially like Hollywood's reaction and the like. How many people actually submitted a call to action that would put someone in office that reflects their actual views? How many of them supported a constructive argument, a constructive suggestion that would actually affect policy change, right? All they are hand-wringing and losing their minds, but they're missing the entire point, which is that it restored power to them that they can now achieve through voting and election.
Yeah, and a lot of exaggeration, Brian, because the point about Justice Thomas, the majority specifically responded to that. Page 13, we'll pull it up. Roe's defenders characterized the abortion right as similar to the rights recognized in past decisions involving matters such as intimate sexual relations, contraception, and marriage, but abortion is different. Roe and Casey acknowledged because it destroys what those decisions called fetal life and what the law now before us describes as an unborn human being. Page 34, they also differentiate those cases, saying they are not at risk.
Well, if you want to extrapolate, if Democrats want to say how bad this is and want to get more votes and more money, they will actually say, look, this is just the beginning. Now they're going to take away from same-sex marriage, they're going to take away contraception, going to take away interracial marriage. And Justice Thomas, by writing that, even though the legal argument is solid, for the layman, which I'm a proud member of, they would say Justice Thomas is going to go further. But the answer is in the Roe v. Wade decision, they say they're not going further. So Justice Thomas, whether you like it or not, it will be alone on this because Alito's not there and Kavanaugh's not there. It does stop here, and they see a difference. And I obviously think Clarence Thomas would have a hard time with nullifying interracial marriage because it would nullify his own. But I was just thinking the big picture. I just am so disturbed by this new trend. And when Republicans play into it, I agree with, I think it's just as disturbing, is blowing up every institution. Yeah. If you don't like the result, blow up the game. Really? So it doesn't, the vote doesn't matter, blow it up, it doesn't matter. Stacey Abrams still hasn't admitted she lost. Hillary Clinton says Donald Trump is illegitimate. For 4 years, they said George W. Bush was an illegitimate president. But Al Gore, to his credit, didn't say that. Everyone around him did. And this last one with President Trump coming out, just blowing up and saying this whole thing's a fraud, because the people who support them, they just no longer accept the result. That hurts the country. And first off, we should care about the country more than anything else.
Yeah, meanwhile, let's check out one of the worst takes perhaps ever in political commentary. Roll Ana Navarro.
I have a brother who's 57 and has the mental and motor skills of a 1-year-old. And I have a step-granddaughter who was born with Down syndrome. And I've got another step-grandson who is very autistic. Their mothers and people who are in that society, who are in that community, will tell you that they considered suicide because that's how difficult it is to get help. And so why can I be Catholic and still think this is a wrong decision? Because I'm American.
What?
Wow.
Well, first of all, what do her relatives with disabilities have to do with Roe v. Wade? She says that it's harder for them to access. I guess the point she was trying to make, which had nothing to do with the relatives with disabilities, was that it was harder for I would say more low-income families to gain access to medical care if, in fact, they wanted to get an abortion. But what did she just say? I heard her say that her step-granddaughter has Down syndrome. So what you're saying is that maybe they should have had an abortion? I mean, because that's what a lot of these...
All three of them.
I don't understand. Should we abort every child that has a disability? That's the whole point. You don't abort a child because it's not convenient for you. If you get pregnant and your child has a disability, as long as they can be sustainable and live, and it's not like, a heart defect, for example, where they're going to die by age 1. That's a whole different story. That was disgusting. I mean, to hear her bring up disabled children in the same sentence as Roe v. Wade, what is she implying? She's
a mental deficient. Yeah. She's not a smart person. What she's actually doing is making a case for infanticide and euthanasia or murder. I mean, that's what she's saying is, these people's lives are such a drain on everyone else that they shouldn't be here and there should be a way of extinguishing their lives. That's the subtext of what she's saying, and it's incredibly disgusting because, she's not giving value to these people who give love and who are loved in her family, who have completed her family, and it's absolutely repulsive. And this is not an argument about where does life begin. When is it okay to terminate a pregnancy without doing harm? That's not this question. What she's saying is these people are disposable and they are not deserving of life. And it is absolutely disgusting. And if that's the case that is being made, then they have lost me.
Yeah, well said, Kennedy. And any family that has a Down syndrome child would tell you they are the greatest gift that they have ever received.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Compagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.